Hi ladies, welcome to May program. So these are the demo videos that you're going to see everything that you need to know. I'm going to break down every workout, every exercise, form, how to make it easier, how to make it harder, any tips or ideas I can think of. I put them all in these videos. So unfortunately the first ones are usually pretty long, and then as the weeks go on they usually get shorter. I'm going to do a short demonstration of each exercise when I first start the video in case you might recognize it or you know how to do it already. If you don't, just keep watching and then I'll break down everything in a lot of detail. So we are on Monday the 2nd. We have our lower body workout. It says 4, 5, or 6 rounds. That means you're gonna choose if you're gonna do 4, 5, or 6 rounds. The number in front of each exercise is the number of reps that you're doing. So that's how many times you're doing the exercise. And whatever number you pick from the top, so the list underneath counts as like 1. So when you finish 20, 12, 20, 12, that counts as 1. So you're either repeating that 4, 5, or 6 times, okay? And then there's a part 2, which is our stationary bear marches, which is to a timer. So I try to divide the parts by star and underline. So example, Monday and Tuesday have 2 parts. If you look at Wednesday and Thursday and Friday, they all only have 1 part. So whenever you have 2 parts, you want to make sure that you finish all of your first part before moving on to your second part. You don't go one after the other. You finish all of the first part, which is always your rounds, and then your second part is usually a timer or something for reps. So we have 20 weighted alternating reverse lunges, 12 goblet squats, 20 sumo pulses, 12 donkey kicks, and then we have our stationary bear marches. So weighted reverse lunges. Goblet squat. Sumo pulses. Donkey kicks. And stationary bear marches. So you're in bear stance, you're gonna walk in, out, out, in, out, out. Okay, so 20 weighted alternating reverse lunges. So anytime I say alternating, that means you're doing either right hand, left hand, or leg, 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 leg. So that means you're just gonna count to that number. That's why it's a high number, that's why it's 20, because we're just gonna count up to 20 so each side can do 10 reps. If it was to something where I want you to do all one side and then all the other side, like the donkey kicks, it's gonna say per. So for per, you're gonna do all 12 on one leg, then when you finish, you're gonna do all 12 on the other leg. With the 20 weighted alternating, we're just alternating legs as we go. So 20 weighted alternating reverse lunges. So when I do weighted lunges, I usually just hold the dumbbells to my side, one in each hand. You could technically hold just one up by your chest. Sometimes if I'm just feeling really lazy, I just hold it like a baby, like I cradle it in front of me. And of course, there's always an option to use no weight. So anytime I put weighted something, if there is the option to use no weight, I'll try to point that out. So with your reverse lunges, you always start with your feet kind of together, close together. You're gonna step back with one of your feet. So when you step back, you should still be able to see that foot. So that's called like railroads. That's why you want to kind of start that way. And when you step back, you just kind of stay in your same line. You don't want to step back and be behind your front leg because it's really wobbly that way. And it's going to create your legs to probably bow out instead of stay straight, okay? Or your knee might go in. So you're going to step back into your train track. Your hips, your shoulders, your knees, and your ankles, and your toes, everything should be pointing forward. You're just gonna drop down to 90 degrees and 90 degrees, come back up, switch legs. Railroad, drop down, come back. Okay, so this is what it will look like. You wanna make sure that you're really getting down there, that you're bending that back leg. You don't wanna step back like this and be straight. You want to make sure both legs are bending about 90 degrees, come back up. You also want to make sure that you're not hunching down. When you step backward, your back is staying up, your shoulders are kind of almost back, and everything is forward. So be careful when you do these, if you're not familiar with them, that when you come back and you go down, that your knees are not, see how my knee's caving in? You don't want your knee to cave in, and you don't want them to bow out or do anything strange, or you don't want your back foot to be really in a weird position. So just think everything forward, railroad track, sink down, back up. Railroad, sink down, back up, okay? And if you feel like you have an issue with like depth or your knees, you can always hold on to a chair, or like if there's like a ledge or the back of a couch or table or something, you can always hold on to that to kind of help guide you. And then of course you don't have to use weight. For goblet squats, this is a weighted lunge, and you hold the weighted squat, and the way you hold the weight is right in front of your chest. So I grab the bottom of the top of the weight with my palms, I wrap my fingers around the top, and then I basically place it on my chest. Some people hold it out here more, I always just rest it on my chest. So all you're gonna do is just squat normally, but you're holding the weight in front of your chest. So with this exercise, what you want to be aware of is, because you are holding the weight in front of you, you don't want the weight to drag you forward, okay? So even though you're holding weight, your back should still stay relatively upright when you squat down. So without the weight, I'm just going to explain the squat a little bit. If you've never squatted before, you may want to use a chair. So when you go down, just like we talked about with the lunge, it's the same idea. Everything should be pointing fairly straight. Sometimes with our squats, we want to point our toes out a little bit. That does help relieve some pressure on your knees if you find that that's bothering you. So go from there to here. But otherwise, everything is pointing forward. Our shoulders are pointing forward. They're not hunching down. And we're just going to sink down, okay? So when you sink down, you want your butt to drop toward the floor, okay? Okay, again, when you have the weight in front of you, you don't want to do this. You don't want to start leaning, because anytime you lean forward, you're going to pull on your lower back. So a lot of people, whenever they have injuries at the gym, or when they do like deadlifts or anything where they're holding a weight and they're doing something with their legs, they tend to hurt their lower back because they don't realize it, but they're actually doing a hunching motion somewhere in their exercise, which again, pulls on your lower back. So you always want to think about keeping your shoulders kind of back, almost stick out your chest when you do a lot of these exercises. If you are somebody who is new to squatting, or you have bad knees, you can use a chair and do tap and go. So the point of tap and go is it controls your depth. So if I'm just squatting normally, I squat lower than where the chair is, okay? If you're somebody who does not know how far to go, or you're not sure if you're going far enough, or again, you might have knee issues, you're gonna wanna squat to the chair, because then you're gonna know that you're getting to the right spot. So you'll still hold the weight, you can either tap and go, back up a little bit. So once your butt hits it, you know you're there, stand up. You can tap and go. So if you're somebody, like I said, that has depth issues, you might only be squatting to here. When you put the chair behind you, you're gonna know that's not far enough, I need to keep going, okay? So that's why it's helpful. Now, if you need to do a full sit, like if your knees cannot support doing the tap and go, or a regular squat on its own, you're gonna do a full sit and stand up. Full sit and stand up. So if you are gonna do a full sit, make sure that when you sit, you're very controlled and that you don't just plop down in the chair. You shouldn't be like really leaning back. You shouldn't be doing this to get up either. You should just be very controlled, sit, stand up, okay? So almost any squat type of variation that we do can be done using a chair. So in case I ever forget to mention it, use your mind, say, hey, I can't do that, but maybe I can use a chair, let me try it. Usually you can. Next we have sumo pulses. So this is just a different variation of a squat. So with sumo squats, you usually have a little bit of a wider stance than you normally would. So my normal squat stance is probably about here. When I do sumo squats, I open it up a little bit. It doesn't have to be really, really wide. Some people like to do it really wide. It's up to you, but it doesn't have to be super wide. It's just wider than normal, and then your feet are gonna turn. So that is the trick of the sumo squat, is the feet are very turned. So if you're a squatter that likes to turn your toes out a little bit, this is even more. Your feet are gonna be really turned out. So that's why you don't have to go too wide, because the magic is in the toes. So you have your toes pointing outward, and you're gonna sink down. So if you notice with your sumo squat, obviously your knees are gonna be kind of diagonal because they're following your foot. So when you do a regular squat, your knees go basically forward because your foot's forward. When you do a sumo squat, your toes are pointed out, your knees are gonna go out. So when you do a sumo squat, you get a very wide squat, kind of like a plie. So you're gonna feel it pull all on the inside of your thigh. So that's what you should be feeling when you do a sumo squat, okay? Now, when you do a sumo squat, you are going to be slightly hunched forward. I shouldn't say hunched, slightly leaned forward unless you have a really good posture, because that's kind of what your body naturally does when you have a wide stance like that and your toes are pointing out. It's almost like your shoulders kind of have to lean forward. I mean, you could do it really upright, but that's honestly very uncomfortable. So as long as your back is straight, it's okay if you're tipped forward a little bit. You just don't want to be like this. So you're going to go here. Now for your pulses, you're going to stay down and you're going to bounce. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that is what your pulse is. So you could do it with the chair behind you if you just needed kind of reference of where you are. Tap, 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 tap. Unfortunately, you cannot do pulsing if you're gonna do a full sit, because once you sit, you take the pressure off and that defeats the purpose of the pulse. So if you have to do a full sit, I would just do how you did the squat previously, except with sumo. So just do a full sit, stand, and just make sure that you keep your feet planted on the ground in your sumo stance, meaning your toes are pointed outward, wider, and just do full sit and stand as a regular sumo squat instead of pulsing. And last for this section is our donkey kicks. So as I said, this is gonna be pursed. You're gonna do all on your right leg, then you're gonna switch to your left leg. So the donkey kick is working pretty much your butt. So you're gonna be on your hands and knees, and you're gonna start with whatever leg that you'd like, and what you're gonna do is you're just gonna lift your leg exactly how it is. So see how all I did was just lift it? I'm gonna lift it, but I'm gonna think about pushing my heel through the ceiling, okay? Down, press, down, press. So you wanna feel your butt contracted when you're up in this position. It should feel really tight. Then come down, up, come down, okay? You wanna make sure while you're doing these that your back is not overly arched or it's not up like this. You're kind of trying to find a neutral space. You might need to widen your stance with your knees a little bit. Make sure you move your arms around. Find a comfortable stance and make sure that you're not like really overly arching, because that would start to hurt. Now with this, some people, like when I first started doing them, people would do them like this. But the problem with that is that you're more so swinging your leg than you are contracting your muscle. So if you keep it bent and you just go up, think about kicking through the ceiling and down, you will feel your butt muscle contract when you hit the top. If you're swinging and kicking, I never really hit a top. It just swings right through it. So I never really pause. So it's just not as effective. Sometimes I like to do straight-legged ones, but again, I'm able to kind of pause at the top for a minute and I can feel it versus just swinging your leg wildly. So you could do it straight, you could do it bent. I suggest if you haven't done them before or you're not very comfortable with them, just do it bent, because then that way you can feel the contraction that I'm talking about. Once you know what to feel, then you can change up the style and you can say, okay, when I do it this way, I'm not feeling anything, or when I do it this way, I do feel it. So it's just kind of needing to know what you're looking for. So on our part 2, after we finish all of our rounds, we're gonna do stationary bear marches. So this is gonna be to your timer. So you do have a timers page, and for this, for any timer that we do, unless it says otherwise, we are always using our Tabata timer, but we're just manipulating the time, okay? So you're gonna pick, do you wanna do 20 seconds, 22, 25, 30, however many seconds you wanna do, between 20 and 30 seconds. That's gonna be your work. We're all gonna rest for 20 seconds, and then rounds per Tabata is gonna equal 4. So that means we're doing it 4 times. So stationary bear marches. You're gonna be in what we call bear stance. So it looks like this. So instead of high plank, where your legs are all the way out here, you're gonna crunch them up like this, okay? So this is your bear stance. You wanna try to keep your butt as low as you can. You don't want it to be way up in the air. You want it to be lower. And you're gonna march. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take a little step in, step out, step out, step in, out, out. This is going to start to burn. It's already burning. I think I'm just sore, but so that's what you're doing. From the front, it's gonna look like this. You probably can't even see, but just so you understand. So nothing is moving except my legs, and they're just kind of doing little marches in, out, out, in, out, out. Again, it's gonna burn. So that is your part 2, and that is your Monday.